was how do I know that I know, an epistemological approach, and Nietzsche's will to truth. So my name is Nikolai. I'm in the last months of my doctoral preparation in philosophy. I've been doing it part-time over 5 years, and I'm also head of religious and values education, as you noted. And my principal supervisor is Professor Lucy Huskinson. She oversees my primary focus, which is the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. In case you don't know much about him, he was born in 1844 and he died in 1900, but he's a very influential philosopher. And may I say, he was deeply influenced by Hindu philosophy as well as Buddhist philosophy, and obviously took a keen interest. My secondary supervisor is Canon Professor Scott Cardell from Charles Sturt University, who is my peer assessor and supervisor for the theorist René Girard, who was born in 1923 and died in 2015. The title of my thesis, so that you know where I'm coming from, is The Fall Guy or Stillborn Prophet, Girard contre Nietzsche on ressentiment or resentment towards a Christology without enemies. Now, the similarity between the two thinkers is that they offer powerful insights into the problem of the cycle of violence as it originates and arises from the mimetic dynamic of a conflicted humanity, the destructive force which afflicts our planet at the moment. So Nietzsche offers, I believe, profound insights into the pathology of resentment, which is at the root of this violence. And Girard, through his incisive grasp of mimesis and the scapegoat mechanism, also provides insights into how human nature is, for all its best intentions, somehow wired up for violence. The difference between the two thinkers is in their opposing understanding of resentment's role in the violent cycle. For Nietzsche, the role of resentment is central. He sees resentment as an engine room, if you will, the incubation room, to change the metaphor, in which, if left unchecked, resentment will drive conflicted human emotions and desires to vengeful and destructive ends. Girard originally agreed with Nietzsche on this, but after his reconversion to Catholicism, he changed his mind. So my thesis posits that the reason for Girard's change of thinking was, firstly, Nietzsche's relentless attack on Christianity's resentment and its Neoplatonism for the masses. Girard took exception to Nietzsche's label for Christianity, along with his relentless God is dead and anti-Christ stance. And Girard mistakenly, I believe, assumed that Nietzsche's stance must mean the wholesale rejection of any God and Christianity. The reality is, I argue, that Nietzsche embraces the Jewish God, who, when asked by Moses what his name was, said, Haya Asher Haya, I am is my name, or as translated by Jonathan Sacks, who's the chief rabbi, he says, I shall be who or how or where I shall be, which I think is just remarkable. And in so doing, Nietzsche honors the God that Gandhi, I believe, would honor, the God who can't be put into a box or a definition, the God who will be who and how and where he shall be. I think my brief encounters with Hinduism, this is a very open faith.
Okay.
So secondly, Girard again wrongly assumes that Nietzsche, by calling himself the Antichrist and taking on the name of Dionysus, the god Dionysus, Greek god, has pronounced himself not only mad, but accursed. The reality, the truth of things is quite different. Just as Nietzsche believes in a God who is more like nothing at all than one of the capricious, unpredictable, pouting, drunken gods of the Greeks, so he opposes the manufactured Christ of institutional Christianity, who trades on people's guilt, who asks people to deny this present life, to devalue it. Nietzsche's Christ, the true Christ of the Evangel, par contra, leaves humanity a legacy to which, again, Gandhi would subscribe. This is a Jesus, the Jesus of Nazareth, the true Christ of the Evangel, who, falsely accused and without resentment, willingly, silently embraces his death, while at the same time forgiving his enemies. because he knows that in reality, they do not, in fact, know what they are doing. And as for Nietzsche's Dionysus, he stands with Christ of the Evangel outside the sacrificial system, a system which trades in guilt in order to expose and denounce it. Nietzsche's will to truth is thus all about authenticity and the importance of continually aligning ourselves with what is true and actual and real. So just for a moment, I'm going to minimize the screen, and I hope I'll be able to return. You can still hear me, can't you? So in Nietzsche's own words, the modern age requires us to build defenses against the contagion of ressentiment, for it is the health of the species that is at stake. So Nietzsche, in his preface of The Gay Science in 1886, wrote this. He said, "The problem of the total health of a people, time and race, or of humanity, is to summon the courage at last to push my suspicion to its limit and risk the proposition that what was at stake in all philosophizing hitherto was not at all truth, but rather something else, let us say health, future growth, power, and life." So I'm hoping I'll be able to return. Yes, I am. That's good. So let us just think very briefly then about, I suppose the first point that I want to make is that in my very brief coverage of Abhinavagupta and his approach to life, is that there's a great similarity between Nietzsche and some of the Eastern philosophers and Hindu philosophers in particular. And of course, some people will strongly argue, and I think with some justification, that Nietzsche actually drew some of his ideas from Hinduism and Buddhism. And here are just a few points that I've noticed that bring the two together. First, the breadth of his interest in multiple traditions, discourses and methodologies, including theology and aesthetics, which makes me feel very comfortable in this environment. His visionary capacities applied to numerous problems. We only have to think of Thus Spake Zarathustra, which of course brings in that aspect. In the naturalistic vision of self and others, and a quest for a non-dualistic vision of reality. I think that's very strong in Hinduism and Buddhism, and your movement too, the Kashmir Shaiva philosophy. And four, he and Nietzsche's mysticism both shamelessly tap into the natural and the material world, which of course there is a tendency in Christianity, in the worst aspects of Christianity, to institutional Christianity, is to deny the material, whereas in fact Nietzsche argued for the fact that you really can't understand anything unless you proceed through the material. So for him, the will to truth has to take into account the natural world, the material world. Most important of all, I think, they share a common belief that no truth can be understood except it be understood emotionally. And I think that's a powerful point. That no human consciousness and intelligence can be rightly appreciated and valued except it be understood in the context of all of life, biological, paleontological, and chemical. So this, of course, this insistence on Nietzsche's part to insist that we naturalize ourselves comes sort of awkwardly to our Western way of thinking, and certainly Western philosophy. And his idea that the person and the thinking can't be separated, that they are one, and that the emotions are important. And of course, he's digging into so many elements that make us feel uncomfortable, you know, like the eternal recurrence of the same, for example. Some people would argue that he borrowed that from Hinduism, and again with justification. It's often very much misunderstood, but the eternal recurrence of the same is this relentlessness of life and its difficulties and how to confront them. Nietzsche argues that he had this revelation once that if you are going to be a person who is a yes-sayer to life, then you must embrace life, and that's where his amor fati comes, to love your destiny, to love life in its fullness, in all of its contradictions and its complexity. And his test for how much you love life is, are you prepared to live the life that you've had with all of its suffering all over again? And if you can't say yes to that, then you're not really equipped to be a yes-sayer. And I think that's a powerful thing. So agonism, the agon, which is the Greek term for the contest, he found a great deal of encouragement from Greek tragedy, as you know. His very first publication, which caused a storm, was the birth of Greek tragedy. And I think he kind of burnt his bridges behind him and became a kind of a roving academic after having been given this remarkable post as a professor of philosophy, not philosophy, but a professor without even having done his undergraduate degree. He was just so brilliant. But clearly he's influenced so many people, and clearly too, he was greatly influenced by Hindu thinking. So I'm here basically as a listener, and I do thank you for the opportunity to speak very briefly to you. There are obviously many, many things that I had thought about to bring to you, but time is of an essence, and I really want to hear you as well. And I'm certainly open to any questions that you might have before we move on. But thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Nicolaji. We have, I think Miraji has joined now. So Miraji, if you can just unmute your phone. I think we missed your the theme presentation, which you had to put it in the beginning. You had some limitation. Can you unmute your phone and then please?
By the way, I'm still looking at myself rather than everyone else. Is that a problem? Do I have to?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, this network connection was a little troublesome. What my intention here is that in reading Abhinavagupta, it's possible to see how often understanding of him has been unremarkable, merely traditional and one-sided. The reasons may be many. His versatile talent, his vision, knowledge of linguistics, thought, and complexity of his philosophy, all these might have contributed to restrict his estimation to only one or two aspects of his talented pursuits. However, scholars in modern times are attempting to fulfill this dearth gradually but effectively, realizing the compelling power of his visions and concepts by provoking those who show concern to read his works, often to facilitate the understanding more rewarding. It's generally noted that the traditional notion of aesthetics in academics, with a few exceptions, contribute towards a limited perception of Abhinava's work, restraining it to a certain property bound by the conservatism of peripheral understanding alone. In such circumstances, it is but compelling to revisit Abhinava's contribution to the related disciplines like psychology, linguistics, consciousness studies, and so on, since conceptualization in these areas in recent times have been widely varying in the light of newer developments, and some of the consequences have been quite phenomenal. Having said this, I must tender my grateful thanks to our host and organizer and the members of the Ishwar Ashram Trust for all their help, Mr. Rakesh Kaul and his team, with whom you are now familiar. He had requested me to be a part of the initial ritual puja to Swami Lakshmanju, founder of the ashram. I could not, but I assured him of a scholars meeting on the great thinker Abhinavagupta, of the Kashmir Shaivism faith. Our understanding of this multifaceted personality may fall short of the required standard, but this is only natural. As Swami Muktidananda of Ramakrishna Order had once explained that though a true and complete understanding of the great personalities and their views require neither a Western nor an Eastern standpoint, every individual of every race and nation can accept and benefit by whatever in their life and teaching appeals to his or her own intellect. It is with this spirit that I discussed with the organizers that we agreed to have this meeting on Abhinava's multifaceted personality. My learned friends from such great distance from India and those within India are excellent scholars, all of them, and one of our students from the university are sincerely welcome to this meeting. If enough interest is generated on this topic, we can always plan to meet and enrich ourselves in future with a volume on this theme. Thank you very much. Namaste. Rakesh?
Thanks, Meeraji.
Yeah.
Wonderful introduction. Navjivanji, are you able to unmute your phone now? I don't know what's the issue here. A speaker should be able to unmute. Can you? As an admin, even I do not know why I'm not able to unmute the phone. That's very strange here. Yeah, now we are able to hear, sir. Yes.
Can you hear?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay? And can you see me?
Yes. Perfectly, all right. Yes.
Great. So let me switch. Okay.
Sorry for all the trouble.
No, I should be sorry because you see, I'm not computer savvy, and old people don't learn fast. So
I was also struggling here with I don't know what's happening. Yeah.
So,
Thank you, sir. Please go ahead.
So it was. I invoke the blessings of Swamiji and my teacher, Professor K.C. Pandey. When I was asked to, when this topic was given to me, this landscape of Kashmir Shaivism, I was not sure what should I speak, because this is an open-ended topic. And so it was very difficult to say, because landscape has so many meanings. But anyway, I'm reminded of one saying of Abhinav Gupta in his Paratrishka Vivaran. So you see, it is the concluding verse 2 in his Paratrishka Vivaran, and where he says, Eta vediti kastulayet prasahyo Shri Shambhavam mat manargaltascha vachaha etat tutavad akhilatmani bhati yanme bhatam tatotra sudhyo na parang mukhasyuhu. Abhinav says that who can estimate, determine forcefully that only this much is the doctrine of pertaining to Shiva is with the doctrine of Kashmir Shaivism. You see, and there are no bar to the opinions. There are opinions aplenty. So Abhinav says he is going to present whatever he has been able to comprehend of Kashmir Shaivism. So let the scholars bear with him. So that is the statement. I'm just quoting him just to say that it is very difficult to map out what we exactly mean by Kashmir Shaivism. It's such a vast subject that's naturally now by Kashmir Shaivism, we can say what we mean simply today is this, that the Kashmir Shaivism as practiced by Swami Lakshmanju, and of course, the first scholar whom we normally refer, Jesse Chatterjee, who wrote the book by the same name, Kashmir Shaivism, and also the system that has been systematized by Professor K.C. Pandey. So that is normal, and also the ambitious series of Kashmir series of Kashmir state, KSTS series, Kashmir series of texts. So this Kashmir Shaivism as presented by this series. So all these things present a kind of picture before us, what we understand by the Kashmir Shaivism today. Normally, you see, by Kashmir Shaivism, without going into details, we take it as a system or as a line of thought representing non-dualistic thought. So that is one thing. Now, see, what is most important about Kashmir Shaivism is its own self-perception. Kashmir Shaivism views itself as a complete system of thought. And that, I must say, is an extraordinary event in the history of Indian thought itself, because no other system of Indian philosophy can ever claim that this is the complete system. Sometimes they have said they are the they are the pioneering systems, they are the highest systems, but to say that this is the complete system, so this is one thing, and I'll be discussing this a little bit. Now, for mapping out the entire Kashmir Shaivism, what we need to understand that we can discuss Kashmir Shaivism and understand it in three different contexts. There are more, but at least three predominant, more important contexts. And the one is the Tantric concepts, under which we take Kashmir Shaivism as the system of Trik. Then there is a philosophical context in which we take Kashmir Shaivism as representing Pratyabhigya. And then there is a third context, you can say, the aesthetic and art context. Now, you see, for Tantric concept, we have got the textual corpus is represented by Tantra Lok. And for the philosophical context, we have the Pratyabhigya corpus, Ishwar Pratyabhigya texts. And for aesthetic and art context, we have Tantra Lok corpus, Ishwar Pratyabhigya corpus, together with supplemented by the text works of Abhinavagupta on literary criticism, namely Lochan and Abhinavbharati. So that is the. Now, when we come to the Tantric, so you see, I'll be very brief, and sometimes I'll be appearing as disconnected also, because I have to rush through. So in a sense, I'll be just cataloging my points. That's all. So might be there will be many more questions raised than the answers. So now, coming to the Tantric context, we see that Kashmir Shaivism comes to us as a system of Trik. Now, this system of Trik comes to us even from earlier than the classical tradition of Kashmir Shaivism. That starts with Soman, etc. So we have Vigyan, Bhairav, etc. So even when Vigyan, we get this mention of Trik, etc. And then this Trik, by saying the word Trik, is a very complex notion, and there are several models that the word Trik includes. So you see, if we look into the Tantra Lok, within the Tantra Lok itself, we have many models that are presented to us. In the first Anik, you see the Trik. We must remember that the Trik culminates into the Anuttar Triko, representing the essence of Tantra, what Abhinavagupta technically calls it Tantra Tattva. Now, you see, within the Tantra Lok, in first Anyak, in the first 5 benedictory verses, Abhinavagupta presents the three kinds of Trik: Paratrik, Apartrik, and Parapartrik. And then, coming to the initial sentence, what we call Adivakyo, Abhinavagupta presents Trik as the Anuttar Trik, or technically speaking it as Anuttar Shadardhartha Krama. And then coming to the preamble of Tantra Lok, what technically we call Upodghato, it presents Anuttar Trik as fused with crumb. So Anuttar Trik is a product of the fusion of Trik with crumb. So that is, and then we, another thing, Trik is presented as a Visheshagam as contrasted with the Samanyagam. So it is a particular doctrine contrasted with the general doctrine. General doctrine is represented by the Shaiv Siddhanta, and in contrast to Shaiv Siddhanta, we have this. And then coming to the end of the first Anyak, Trik is presented as you see, as an embodiment of the fourfold upayas, upaya chatushtay. Now, coming to the 29th Anyak, Tantralok presents Trik in an entirely new format, and that format is of a Shastra, and they call it four-seated Shastra, Chatushpith Shastra. So, Chatushpith Shastra consists of mantra, mudra, mandal, and Pith. And we know that the Trik belongs to the Vidyapith. Abhinavgupta's Trik belongs to the Vidyapith. So now this. And again, coming to the 35th Anyak, we have the model. There, Abhinavgupta says, presents Trik as a complete system. He says, Dharmartha kam moksheshu puna punadibhedatah vijitreshu phaleshvekah upayah shambhavagama. Now you see, this has far-reaching consequences. So I'll not be able to discuss all those things, but for contemporary relevance, this is a very important thing. And then the moral, social, philosophical, cultural, all those, this covers the entire gamut. And then you see another thing, that in 36th Anyak, we see Trik as presented as, you see, as the synthesis of 3.5-fold transmissions. This is called Ardha Chatasramatika or Adhyushtu Santati Srotah. So 3.5-fold transmissions, all these go together. That's why you say it's not only, it's very difficult. Now coming to the 37th Anyak, we find that the Trik is presented as a twin-streamed Shastra, Dvipravaha Shastra. So you see, this Shastra is from Nakulesh and from Shrikant, both constitute. So one representing the Vedic stream and the Nigam stream, the other representing the Agami stream. So this is the fusion of these two. So this is, and then another, you see, now here again, Trik is represented as Shadardha. Shadardha means half of the six. Instead of calling it directly the three, Trik, triad, he says half of the three, half of the six. And now this is again a very complex notion, not going into it. You see, because the whole of Malini Vijayvartik is devoted to this notion of the half of Trik. What does it mean? So normally we can take it in a very, very loose sense. That is Siddhant, Vam, and Dakshan. These three, all the three streams go together and make up for the Shadardha. Now, from this Dvipravaha Shastra, twin-streamed Shastra, you see what follows, that is very important. He says the notion of mukti is not only Jivan Mukti. You see, it's not, it also Mahabhoga. It is a great enjoyment. It is a synthesis of Jivan Mukti, liberation within life, plus it is also the great enjoyment. Now, this integration of Jivan Mukti with Mahabhoga paves way for the aesthetics of Abhinavgupta or Kashmir Shaivism, for forays into the aesthetics. So, now this is the Tantralok that presents Trik before us. Now, when we come to the another context, that is the context of philosophy, there we see that Kashmir Shaivism is presented to us purely as a non-dual system. Abhinav says in his Ishwar Pratigya Vivrat Vimarshini, कि तत् प्राथम कवि कल्पिके इह उपदेश्य संविन मुखेन आदो अद्वैम द्वेष. Primarily and foremost, we should, you see, what we aim at, what we should focus at, it is the advay, non-dual reality. So that should be. And technically, Kashmir Shaivism is a modern term, but technically, you see, in Kashmir text, we call it Swatantra Chidadvaitavad. This system, the Kashmir Shaivism, is known as Swatantra Chidadvaitavad. That means representing a system that speaks of or that propounds the doctrine of autonomous non-dual consciousness, not autonomous non-dual consciousness. So you see, so that is the name that is given by Abhinav Gupta in his Ishwar Pratyabhyavashni. Now he says, now this Shastra is this system, you see, is focused, it is the doctrine of self. It propagates the doctrine of self. It is the Atma Jnana Shastra. It is the knowledge of the self that is advocated by the system. And now here, while propounding this, Kashmir Shaivism aligns itself with the mainstream Indian philosophies. So long as it was an exclusive system as presented in Tantra Lok. Now it aligns with the mainstream Indian philosophies and calls it Adhyatma Vidya, a spiritual science. And there too, he says, now the focus is on the subject. You see, the ultimate subject. It exclusive focus on the nature of the subject, that is Pramata. And here again, you see in Vibrat Vimarshani, this philosophy is presented as a synthesis of Shaiv Siddhanta, of Brahmavada. Shaiv Siddhanta means dualistic Shaivism. Brahmavad means Upanishadic philosophy, Upanishadic non-dualism. And then the Yogachar idealism or Vijnanavad are the Buddhist Vijnanavad. Now these three together, of course, he discards dualism from the Agamas, from the Shaiv Siddhant. He discards, you say, in Advaita Vedanta, Maya is an adventitious and ad hoc principle. So he rejects the ad hocism of Maya and takes it as a Shakti of Brahma and say, in Vijnana, the idea or the Vijnan of the Buddhists is to be taken as the Atma and Ishwar. So if we combine all these, we have the Kashmir Shaivism philosophy. And now again, he says, you see, Kashmir Shaivism is presented as a Vishesh Darshan, as contrasted with the Samanya Darshan. That means Kashmir Shaivism is presented as a system in contrast with the mainstream non-dualism, mainstream non-dualism of Vedanta. So you see, so Samanya is Advaita and Vishesh is Shaktadvaita. Abhinav goes in detail. Now what's very important, when it says the Kashmir Shaivism is Vishesh, so he says what is mean by Vishesh? He says Vishesh is Shakti Laksha. Vishesh is defined by the, you see, he says the nature of Atman consists in Shakti. So that's very important statement. It is the Shakti which constitutes the very self, very nature of Atman. And now he says that this Shakti, now this Shakti is abstracted as a, you see, as a creative dynamism of consciousness. So now creative dynamism of consciousness is abstracted as Shakti. It is Shakti. And then Shakti is again conceived as the seed of pure bliss and joy. So this is this, again you see, you can see the seeds of his aesthetic, dimension of the system. So this is the, and you see, another important thing, do I have 5 minutes more? Rakesh ji?
Yes, definitely. Please go ahead.
So, now you see, now this again, Kashmir Shaivism is a system of experience. We take it as so normally when we talk of sadhana and other things, so we take Kashmir Shaivism as an esoteric and mystic system. Now, what Abhinav says in Kashmir, he says Kashmir Shaivism, though you see, even though the mystic and esoteric transcendence is a matter of lived reality. It's not that, it's not something that is beyond us, it is within us. And then he says, it's just, I'll read that portion where he says this. And then he says, you see, Param Bhumihi Agameshu Paramarahasyapi, although it is very, very esoteric, is very secret, in the ultimate, you see, the ultimate reality is though Paramarahasyapi, it is naiva anabhasamana, is never that it doesn't shine to you. It is always manifest to you. It is always a matter of experience, constant experience to you. So that is the something that is made. And then again he makes a very, very, very important. He said that, you see, non-dual reality is not something which thrives in vacuum. He says it is not nirvishesha. You see, it embraces life. He says it is via lived experience that this, you see, this non-dual reality can be so designated. If we say there is a non-dual reality, it must be via the lived experience. He says, and that's very important, because had it not been this, then there would have been no basis for his aesthetic forays. So tasmat jivat bodha sopan vyavadhanen advaya vidhanam uchitam. Now I'm not reading it, and it's not necessary to go to the text, but I'm just highlighting those. Now you see, the most important point Abhinavgupta makes, or Kashmir Shaivism makes. In fact, this is a tradition, long tradition. I mean, if going with the first text of that is available, that is in the ultimate analysis, philosophy is aesthetics. Philosophizing, you see, culminates into aestheticizing. If it doesn't aestheticizes, then it is no philosophy. So that's a very, and you see what Abhinavgupta takes the first instance, first opportunity, while he starts discussing the Adivakya, the initial, the opening sentence of the Ishwar Pratyabhigya Karika in Vimarshini, and the second Karika of Ishwar Pratyabhigya Karika in Vivrit Vimarshini. He makes this point, he highlights this, underlines this, and he says, you see, because he is discussing the word uplakshan there, and is there, while discussing the uplakshan, is that what when we say we know reality, it's not knowing, it is savoring reality. Whatever you know, the moment you have come to know, the reality doesn't go to your mind, it goes to your heart. You savor reality. Anaswadita purvam aishwaryam aswad gochari bhavati. So now you see, that means now the exercising is taking place at two levels. One at the level of thought itself, and one at more concrete level, which we call art and literature and other things. So he is talking of at the level of thought itself. You see, the whole thought itself, the whole consciousness is aesthetic. So that's one thing. And he says even the pure metaphysics, prasankhana matra, in Paratrinshka Vivran, he says this prasankhana matra, the pure metaphysics, the pure gnosis, is simply aesthesis. That's the point he makes. So that is very important. And then from there, we come to the context of art. So in the context of art, you see, we have two, parallel correspondences. There is a mirror correspondence between the universal consciousness, universal agency, and the human creativity. Now, human creativity, the art, what we call art, the domain of art is the domain of human creativity. And this world, or and this cosmos, is the domain of universal agency. So there is a correspondence and there is a parallelism. So there is a parallelism. So that, and you can say, in technically speaking, if we use the specific expression of Kashmir Shaivism, so there is a bimba pratibimba bhava. So that is, so this is, and that's why you see, in Tantra Lok, to which we refer, that the salvation or liberation does not consist only in mukti, it consists in mukti and mahabhoga, mukti and bhoga. Now this translates into Abhinavgupta's forays into aesthetics, art, you see, human arts, literature. So that's why, and then that's why he writes Lochan and Abhinav Bharti on Natya Shastra, and Lochan on the theory of Dhvani. Now you see, So then we could, I mean, there are many more aspects to this, because that's very important. What kind, how do we place this non-duality? What is the honor of this non-duality? We will not go into those discussions because the time is very short, and the organizers have been very liberal with me that they have allowed me perhaps a few minutes. Only one thing, just to, you see, just to draw your attention. I mean, you see, we are living in the times of very challenging times of Corona. So it is an existential crisis. And without answering the question, I'll just read out a portion from the Malini Vijayavartik, where Abhinavgupta raises these kinds of questions. So there are answers to the modern problems. You say, idam dushkritametaccho sukritam phalabhedatah idiyat pravibhaktam kin tatra sechaiva jayate स्वतंत्रो यज्ञसौ कथम परपीड़ा करीम निदाम इच्छां ग्रहणाति यो नित्यम करुणा रस निर्भरा. He says the God Almighty, the God consciousness, which is full of karuna, which is compassion incarnate, how can it inflict such a misery on humanity? So, and then there are answers, but I think I must stop here, and thank you so much. Thank you, the organizers, and thank you, the learner audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. It has been really honor to listen to you. And in 15 minutes, whatever you give, talk about the Kashmir Shaivism, various aspects and the dimension of Kashmir Shaivism. I know we had a limited time. I would like to give the mic to George. Maybe George, if you can unmute your phone and also open your video also. Yeah. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Perfect.
Firstly, it's so nice to reconnect with Dr. Rastogi. Last time we sat together was 2006 in Delhi. And it was Dr. Rastogi who brought all of Swamiji's disciples together at a table. And he said, you people don't realize you're sitting on a gold mine. And he said, Swami Lakshmanju's teachings on Kashmir Shaivism are so unique in this world, you must present them out. And it was a great inspiration. And since that time, we've published a lot of Swamiji's teachings, probably 8
George,
volumes.
if you can switch on your video also, we'd like to see you here.
I've got the video on.
Oh.
It says that it's on. I'm not sure. I'm also not very savvy with this. So
yes, it's on. It's on, George. Carry on.
Okay, it's on.
Now we're able to see you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, in 2006 we had the centenary celebration of Swami Lakshmanju's life, but I'm not going to go into other details now as time is limited, and I've set my alarm for 15 minutes. It'll go off and I'll stop. Swami Lakshmanju was quite unique in this world of Shaivism. He was considered the last link in an unbroken oral tradition, which if you can trace it back, it goes 5,000 years to the beginning of Kali Yuga. And many of the things that Dr. Rastogi has just talked about probably went over a lot of people's heads. But the essence of Trika philosophy is that there are only 3 things happening in this world. There are 3 things moving in all of us, and that is will, knowledge, and action. As individuals, we all have desires. Whatever the desire is, we have the knowledge of how to fulfill that desire, and we get up and act. These 3 energies are functioning all the time, 24/7, even in the dream state. And before he left this world, Swami Lakshmanju gave out one mantra, which was slightly tweaked to Kashmir Shaivism. It's a mantra which has been around for many, many thousands of years. And I want to recite that mantra and just read out a little bit, which is it's the essence of the energies of the Trika. So, and it's always auspicious, of course, to start any lecture with a mantra. So whatever I'm telling you, whatever I'm talking about today, I've only heard from Swami Lakshmanju. I'm just a empty vessel, really, repeating whatever I had learned over the last so many years, and of course the 10 years that I spent directly with Swami Lakshmanju. So this mantra is called the Agora mantra. If you just sit quietly and you can just relax and listen. Om agorebio tegorebio gore gore taribyascha sarvata sharva sarvebio namaste rudra rupebya agorebio tegorebio gore gore taribyascha Sarvata Sharva Sarvebhyo Namaste Rudra Rupebhya Agorebhyo Tagorebhyo Gora Gora Taribhyascha Sarvata Sharva Sarvebhyo Namaste Rudra Rupebhya. O Lord Shiva, you alone transform yourself into all forms, into the forms of the powers of Rudra as Agora, the enlightening and uplifting energy, Goratari, the frightful darkening energy which pushes one down, and Gora, the energy which keeps one fixed, neither rising or falling. These forms embodied in Rudra Shiva are helpful to the aspirant while he is aware, and frightful for the one who is ignorant, pushing them down and down. So this mantra, Swami Lakshmanji gave to us about 2 years before he left this world. And it was very unique because there was a period of time when Swamiji went into a very deep state. And during that time, about 1 month it lasted, during that time he had direct darshan of Swachandanatha. And this is unique because Swachandanatha in the history of Kashmir Shaivism doesn't appear in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, Lord Shiva appears as what is called Sri Kantanatha. You're very familiar with the picture of Shiva with the trident and the tiger skin and 4 arms. But Swachandanatha, and this is a mantra which embodies the essence of Swachandanatha's energies. And Kashmir Shaivism is such a unique philosophy, and one has to remember, I think somebody touched upon it earlier, I think Dr. Meera, the idea is that we are not separate from Shiva. All of us sitting here, we're actually rays of Shiva. And the whole reality of our life is that Shiva and Shakti together have tricked us into thinking that we're individuals, that we're jiva, that we're limited. And how they've done this is quite magical. And you'd have to have a little bit of an understanding in Kashmir Shaivism that the uniqueness of this is Kashmir Shaivism postulates that there are 36 tattvas, 36 levels of creation, through which Shiva and Shakti step all the way down, not only to becoming us, but becoming the trees and the mountains and the rivers, all the 5 elements around us. And Kashmir Shaivism, Swami Lakshmanji tells us time and time again, as again Dr. Rastogi was talking about Abhinavagupta and the ascetic beauty of the creation, that the world around us is actually, it's a commentary of God consciousness. It's a commentary of how consciousness has flown out. And it's in this world that we enjoy. And we're stuck. We're stuck because at the highest level, in order for Shiva and Shakti, universal space and universal time, called Vyapakata is Shiva, and Nityata, universal time, how did they come out of that state? And the way they did that was through what's called the malas. They decided to create a sense of incompleteness. They were complete and still are complete in themselves, but they created this idea of, I need something more. And the malas, for those that are familiar, Anava Mala, Maya Mala, and Karma Mala, these are the 3 things that tie us into the world. And we try to fulfill that void within ourselves through either action, Kriya Shakti, or we try to fill it through knowledge, jnana shakti, or we try to fill it through just deep, deep thought, thinking, who am I? Through meditation and contemplation, which is anavamala, because anavamala is this feeling of incompleteness in the self. And the magical trick is that we are Shiva. There's another beautiful verse, which was the first verse of the Shiva Drishti, penned down by the great master Somananda. And that verse, again, encapsulates the situation that we're in. That verse is Asmad Rupa Samavishta Swatmana Atmanivarane Shiva Karotu Nijaya Namah Shaktya Tatatmane. Let that Shiva who is inside of me, in my limited state, let that Shiva bow down to universal Shiva through the energy of Shakti, through the energy which has flown out into this universe, to remove all the obstacles in my life, which are the things that get in the way of me realizing my nature. But those obstacles themselves are Shiva and Shakti in play. So this is the essence of Kashmir Shaivism. And we all want to know about ourselves. We are constantly moving in our limited world, which is we have swatantriya, we have freedom in this limited world that we've created for ourselves, and we're trying to move back to that unlimited world. So this idea of something missing is the essence of what keeps pulling us towards knowing ourselves better, understanding ourselves, and trying to get back to our own real nature. And Swami Lakshmanju continually emphasized the value of meditation. And he said that this meditation is the real key to understanding the true nature of yourself as Shiva and Shakti. There's two things that Shiva and Shakti can never be separated. But we are caught, again, in these three energies, Agora, Gora, and Goratari. These are the embodiments of the energies of Shiva that have manifested in the universe. They go by different names in different places, Jeshta, Raudri, Vama. But essentially, these are just the three activities of Trika philosophy. And Swamiji would say that the best way to find out who you are, because you are Shiva, is to study and meditate. Continually read over and over again, because there's that question within each of us, always asking, who am I? And I think it was Ramana Maharshi, who Swamiji met very early in his life, who coined the phrase that Shiva lives in you as you. It's not that you have to become something else. And in Kashmir Shaivism, there's nowhere to go. Mukti, Jivan Mukti, or enlightenment isn't in some seventh heaven somewhere far away from you. It's right here, it's right now. And that is the essence of this teaching. But it is important. It is important to study, to have a good understanding, and the basics of this understanding, they're all there. We've been working now for nearly 30 years on publishing everything that Swamiji said, and it's all being presented now through audio, video, through books, and we've been presenting it as transcripts so that people who want to study what, say, John and Denise Hughes studied many, many years ago, they can actually hear the original lectures given by Swamiji. Books always lend themselves to misconception. In 1,000 years' time, somebody says, well, did Abhinavagupta say this or did he say that? And this is what we have today. Dr. Rasyogi will definitely confirm that there's a lot of controversy. Swamiji, many times in his life, had direct darshan of Abhinavagupta. Abhinavagupta would come in his meditation, and Swamiji would often we would be doing lectures, weekly lectures with him, and he would say that, oh, I have something important to discuss at the beginning of this lecture. And it was usually something that he had been told by Abhinavagupta. And another controversy that is there, that Swamiji said that most people think that Abhinavagupta was born in 950 and he left this world in 1020. He said this is wrong. Abhinavagupta lived to the age of 96 years old, and he was hale and hearty till the end, which means that actually, according to the historical things, because there's only 3 or 4 places where Abhinavagupta has given dates for the works that he did. But at the end, when he did I think it was the Paratrishika, the Ishwara Pratyabhijna Vivriti Vimarshini was one of the last texts, I believe, that he did. And he has dated that. And then he said, and after this, I will retire. So that means that he probably left this world around 1020. But if he lived to 96, that means he was born in 924. Scholars will, of course, they'll debate this and go on. But Swami Lakshmanju met Abhinavagupta on many occasions. And on one occasion, I'm happy that Dr. Rastogi talked about the Ishwara Pratyabhijna, the Vritti Vimarshini. This was a text on Pratyabhijna philosophy. And one time when Abhinavagupta appeared to Swami Lakshmanju, he pointed out that the essence of this whole philosophy were the Mangala slokas that he put at the beginning of each of the 16 chapters. And each of those slokas is an address and an obeisance, a namaskar, you can say, to each of the letters of the Sanskrit vowels in the Sanskrit alphabet. There are 16 vowels, there are 16 chapters, 16 letters, and 16 verses. So the intimate relationship that Swami Lakshmanju had with Abhinavagupta was something that was to be treasured. And there are many places, even in Tantra Loka, when Swami Lakshmanju was translating Tantra Loka, he did the first 18 chapters. We've already released the first Anika, first chapter. 2 and 3 should come out shortly. When he was going through that, he often states that Jairata, the commentator, was not correct in his assumptions of what Abhinavagupta was teaching. And he could have only got that from his intimate relationship with this tradition. So again, I'm very happy that Rakesh is putting this platform up for at least making people aware of, in India, the Ishwar Ashram Trust, which is headed by Mr. Indrakrishan Raina, who Swamiji gave we can say, the reins of all of his teachings and all of his activities to continue after he left this world. And Anashil Munshi, of course, and his brother, Devinda Munshi. And in the US, as a complement to that, we have John and Denise Hughes, who studied with Swamiji for 16 years. They lived next door to Swamiji, recorded over 800 or 900 hours of Swamiji's lectures. John was very meticulous about that. And Swamiji, over those years, recorded most of the very important texts of Kashmir Shaiva philosophy. And at the moment, there's my alarm, so I should stop there, but I'll just finish off. At the moment, we are doing a webinar because of what came up with coronavirus. We are conducting a webinar on the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, it starts in about almost an hour and a little bit. And we have a couple of hundred people online every Saturday. I think it's 8:30 in the evening in India and different parts of the world. So that's about as much as I can add here. I'll hand it back to Rakesh. And it was very nice for me to see all of these unfamiliar faces, but seeing that everyone has an interest in Kashmir Shaivism, and especially I would tweak your interest to look up either the Ishwar Ashram website or our websites in the United States.
Thanks.
So Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, thanks a lot for giving such an insight about Swamiji's message, Swamiji's teaching, Abhinav Gupta and the Kashmir Shaivism. I would like to invite Meera Chakrabarti ji, Dr. Meera ji, if you can just unmute your mic. Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're able to hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, perfect. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's good to see that people have taken different, aspects of Acharya Abhinavagupta. I have tried to take the aesthetic, the aesthetic experience that he has tried to contribute it to, and there are some Sanskrit words which I would also translate in between. I suggested, this is for reference of Dr. Rastogi, I suggested the landscape of Kashmir with this idea that it's a vast horizon and that scholars can choose the different dimensions, to if they do, because it is just our first meeting. So I thought that if interest is generated, then we can organize many more. With this idea, I have, so your open-endedness that you said is, yeah, right. It is open-ended. To begin with, Abhinava as a philosopher posits consciousness as an a priori existence and intends to show what is involved when one deals with consciousness to have aesthetic experience. I just noted the time so that I can finish within that. As it brings the aspect of mind in touch, particularly with the nature of sense experience and its enjoyment, which is called in Sanskrit rasa asvadana. Even Kant is referred to as taste, the taste of aesthetics. As part of the general theory of understanding, which is known as sadharanikarana. But his philosopher's approach to aesthetics, which is trying to absolutely convince that there is a theory applicable to sense experience, which need not go through the subjective conditions, can be decisive. According to Abhinava, the aesthetic experience is linked to the spiritual experience. However, it is necessary to note that though the consciousness is always existent in all experiences, it is expressed through truncated experience when I consciousness, which is called aham in Sanskrit, is manifest. And therefore he says it is not the whole or the integral experience, purnatma, caused by the act of self-limitation, which is, he says, atma sankochana, resulting in the experience of not self or idam, this, in the background of the I experience. Abhinava designates by the term spiritual ignorance as Purusha Ajnana. By Purusha Ajnana, he says spiritual ignorance. And he defines Purusha Ajnana as the experience of not self in the self. Atmani Anatma Bhava. Bodha. Sorry. Now, this locus of this self experience is the percipient subject's mirror of consciousness. Chitta darpana. Chitta is the mind, darpana is the mirror, with the consciousness serving as the reflecting medium for the individual's self-experiences. Since this self-experience is produced prior to the creation of chitta or intellect or mind, during the manifestation of the world, it is held to be beyond the reach of the chitta or mind. This is very interesting. So all this is explained to bring out the important dimension that the aesthetic experience is defined by its relation to the rootedness in consciousness, pure and simple. What is consciousness? Impure is the truncated one, when it's I consciousness. But this consciousness is pure and simple, and therefore known as worldly or mundane. Alaukika. Loka is worldly. Alaukika, not laukika. By the time the experience is spilled to the I consciousness, the aesthetic experience becomes the truncated state of I consciousness, and therefore laukika, worldly or mundane. Explained through, as said above, the general theory of understanding. Now, this position is supported by our text of wisdoms, which is known as Upanishads, rendering the term raso vaisaha. Consciousness itself is the rasa. Now, he says, therefore, that na laukika sukantara sadharana. Therefore, it's not. I'll tell you the moment he is trying to describe is here. It is consciousness. One might feel, you might feel, how consciousness then itself be rasa. That we will clarify it when it comes to Kant's position. At this juncture, at this point, it's important to note how Immanuel Kant is subtle and significant in his observation on aesthetics that appear very similar to that of Abhinava's perception. Both are saying the same thing almost. Kant suggests that if we grasp the relation of our faculties to the world and so understand both our limitations and the possibility of transcending them, then what happens according to Kant? Aesthetic experience intimates to us that our point of view is, after all, only our point of view, and that we are no more creators of nature or beauty or aesthetic. Then we are creators of the point of view from which we observe and act on it. Momentarily, we stand outside that point of view, not so as to have knowledge of a transcendent world, but as to perceive the harmony that exists between our faculties and the objects in relation to which they are employed. At the same time, we sense the divine order. Abhinava mentions the spiritual experience, the divine order that makes this harmony possible. This fundamentally changes how we approach the idea of aesthetic experience. Kant's idea is based on antinomy, and according to the antinomy of taste, aesthetic judgment seems to be in conflict with itself. Abhinava is suggesting the same almost. It cannot be at the same time aesthetic, an expression of subjective experience, and also a judgment claiming universal assent. And yet all rational beings, simply in virtue of their rationality, seem disposed to make these judgments. On the one hand, they feel pleasure in an experience, and this pleasure is immediate. That moment of rasasvadana or enjoying is immediate, not based in any conceptualization of the object. So when you say, oh, beautiful valley, you are already conceptualizing, you are already passing a judgment. On the other hand, they express their pleasure in form of a judgment, speaking as if the beauty were a quality of the object, thus representing their pleasure as objectively valid. How can this be so? Both of them ask. The pleasure is immediate, based in no reasoning or analysis. So what permits this demand for universal agreement? Now, I finished within the time. I just want to add here as a rejoinder that we have a school of logicians called Nyaya and Vaisheshikas, and they have this concept of perception, pratyaksha, when he says that the first moment when you perceive the object as it is. Idam kinchit. This is something. So that moment of perception, you are not qualifying the object. That is called nirvikalpa, without vikalpa, without the epithets or visheshanas or adjectives. And the second moment you said, oh, this is ghata, or this is a jar. So that is called vikalpena sahita savikalpa. That is, the distinctions are added to that. So this is only a rejoinder to justify that what Abhinava and Kant have been saying, that the first moment is the moment of the pleasure, which is the experience, and the second moment is the kind of judgment. And therefore, this nuance that Abhinava points out is unique. Thank you. Rakeshji?
Yes, thank you, Miraji, for giving us the complete insight about the topic. May I request, we have with us Gyan Lugiji from Vienna. If you can unmute your phone. Yes. Yeah, we can.
Hear?
Yes, we are able to hear you. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we are able to.
Thank you very much. Well, I have a PowerPoint. I have a question before. I have a PowerPoint, but I don't know how to let
There
other
will
people
be
participate.
on the right hand side. There
Yes.
will be a present now.
Yes.
You can do that. Maybe you can click there.
Okay.
Do you see that?
Yes, but I cannot. I'm unfortunately.
Or if you can just email to me. Meanwhile, I'll try to open that. Is that what?
Yes,
I don't know how fast it can be. Yeah, we can do that.
For a moment, I come immediately.
Are you not able to share it?
No, I do not know. I see different options, but I cannot click the right one. That is the title of the PowerPoint. I do not know how. But well, I am sending you. I'm sending you.
Yeah, please do that. Please do that. I'll try to share it.
I can send you. Only a moment. Yeah. Excuse me. So. Send. Okay, send. Okay. Well, I can begin. In the meantime, I can begin, of course.
Perfect.
And well, I thank you very much for the invitation and for the very interesting contribution. I would like to choose the title of my contribution, the title monism, because in my opinion, this is the principle of the Paramarthasara. This is the text on which I have concentrated my analysis. And excuse me, yeah, something is falling. I don't know where. And well, I would like to analyze to give this as principles of my analysis. This the principles A is which I found in this text is that appearance is dualist and truth is non-dualist, it's monism. The principle B is liberation is always here if provided that there is acknowledgement of the non-dualism in which we live. We think we live in a dualism, but actually reality is non-dualist, it's monism. The principle C, the third principle, which I had found in the text of Abhinavagupta, consists in the infinity of manifestations of the Lord. The Lord has an infinity of manifestation. It is both immanent and transcendent. This is one very interesting aspect, in my opinion. That is, it is the principle, the energy, which is in everything, and therefore is present in everything, but in living entities and in not living entities, but it does not, is not exhausting itself in the concrete entities. It is transcendent to these entities. It is the principle of the potentialities of the entities. And now, in order to go
I can take the presentation now because
perfect.
I got this
Well,
slide.
I am going now to page 12 of my presentation. I have made a little spring in my presentation, and well, I will begin with some quotations in order to be
So,
more clear.
are you able to see my see the screen? Viewers, if you can acknowledge, please.
I have to please, one moment. No, I see myself in my screen.
Okay, no. Can others acknowledge if they're able to see my screen? See the presentation?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Great. Okay.
Yes,
So
because I unfortunately see myself. I am at I am going now to I can
so I'm at verse 1, slide number 12.
I am going to slide 12.
Yes.
And you should see verse 1. I would like to quote it because it is something very interesting, and we can find here so a kind of compendium or synthesis of the principle of Abhinavagupta. In this text, you see, it says, I take refuge in you alone, Shambhu, work beyond Maya, transcendent without beginning, one, existent in all beings, myriad forms, refuge of all and immanent in all animate and inanimate creation. And on page 13, on the immediate following page, 13,
yes,
you can see what I have gained from this text with the help of course, of commentaries and with the help of the continuing analysis of the text of the Abhinavagupta. You can see the properties which are attributed to Shambhu can already deliver interesting elements as regards Lord's own characteristic. It's beyond Maya, so it is beyond pure appearance. Is transcendent in of its own reality, is without beginning, is one, it exists in all beings, therefore is present in our reality, is immanent in our reality without thereby exhausting his nature in this immanence. His energy prevailing the reality. He continuously originates new form of entities, hence the Lord is immanent in the forms he creates, but he does not coincide with them, so that he maintains his transcendence in relation to the multiplicity. He is refugeful, which opens to the idea that he is the supreme form to which the individual how to go. Actually, any individual is already in his true dimension united with the Lord. The mistaken account of the reality, which makes the individual think that there is a dualism between the I and the reality, prevents the individual from having the true consideration of reality, the non-dualist consideration of reality. That is, we have the impression we are in a dual, in a multiplicity of reality. In truth, actually, there is the aham, there is the principle, and we are part of this principle. We think, we believe, we are not, but we are indeed always part of this principle, in spite of the fact that we do think we are not. We can see that the origin and cause of the separation of the individual from the Lord is the problem of ignorance. Actually, the individual is not separated from the Lord. The individual mistakenly interprets himself as being different and separated from the Lord and from our reality. He thinks that it is how I is other than the eye of the Lord. Actually, the eye of the Lord is everything. The eye of the Lord is our reality. Hence, the eye of the Lord is the eye of the individual too. The Lord is immanent in all animate and inanimate creation. Hence, he is not an entity being separated from the age reality. And now, the following page, we can observe that this specified in this verse, in the first verse of the poem of Abhinavagupta, that The Lord exists in all beings and that He is immanent in our reality. From the beginning, we are told that He is not extraneous to us. That is, the Lord is not an external entity in comparison with us, in relation to us. He is not the totally other in comparison with us. He is not the completely other in relation to us. Lord's way of manifestation is infinite, since it is present in myriad of forms. It's the our energy which dominates the world. Our reality is His own manifestation. It's the self-manifestation of the Lord. He does not coincide with the reality, so He is immanent in reality, but He is as such more than the reality, the actual reality itself. And therefore, the Lord cannot be confused with His manifestations. On the one hand, the formula denies the future of the Lord as an entity which is completely other. He is not completely other in relation to us. This is immanent. On the other hand, the formula aims to specify the transcendence of the Lord. In spite of the fact that the Lord is present in the entities of the reality, He is not to be identified with the entities of reality. Nothing exists apart from the Lord, but the Lord is not identical to the reality. The Lord assumes all aspects of reality. Now I would like to introduce you in another argument, that is the problem of the coexistence of the unity and the multiplicity in the Lord. Unity and multiplicity. That is, this is interpretation of the image of the first, in my opinion, very interesting image of the crystal, Lord of the crystal. And in order to anticipate this content, I am going to read the verse with you. The Lord reveals Himself in many forms. The image of the crystal.
Can you say which slide number you were there, because maybe
Yeah,
I missed it.
It is 16.
Okay,
16,
I'm at 16. Okay, please go ahead. Yes.
The image of the crystal, which is expressed in the following verse, which I'm going to read with you, aims to state that the Lord assumes different forms while remaining the same entity. That is, it is the oneness, the unity in the multiplicity. This is the Lord. This is one of the aspects of the Lord. As the crystal is one while reflecting a plurality of entities, so the Lord is one in spite of the fact that He assumes a plurality of dimensions. And this is the verse, slide 17, verse 6. So the translation, as the pure crystal assumes hues of different kinds, in the same way the Supreme Lord also assumes the form of gods, men, animals, and trees. This, the crystal remains one, but the crystal can reflect a multiplicity of entities. And this is one of the ways, or one of the images in which our author explains the comprehension of the unity of the Lord in the multiplicity of His manifestations and of His creations. Now, now I would like to add some remarks on this point. You see, the Lord is compared to crystals, since crystals can assume different hues while remaining the same crystal. The Lord remains as the Lord while assuming the form of gods, of men, of animals, and of trees. The continuity of the Lord is to be acknowledged in the plurality of the manifestations of the Lord. Here, the principle, the main point of this reflection is to introduce us that, in spite of the apparent or the seemingly dominating plurality, detached plurality of entities, there is a common unity, a common factor of unification, which is represented by the Lord. And our ignorance is so that we tend to assume the presence of a multiplicity of detached multiplicity, whereas the truth, the authentic vision of reality is that there is one Lord which is producing everything out of Himself, and which donates this unity to the our reality. You see, the Lord produces out of Himself, through His infinite freedom, the forms of gods, of man, of animals, and of the further entities. he remains the same throughout the infinite manifestations of himself. The unity of the Lord with himself remains throughout all its particular manifestation, the particular entities. Now I would like to go to another image which also gives a contribution to the understanding of this unity, of this permanent unity in the multiplicity. And this is slide 19. The verse is the 7th verse of Abhinavagupta work. You can see, just reading
Excuse
that.
me, I'd like to interrupt. It appears
Yes.
that Rakeshji's second screen has been dropped out for quite a while, so we haven't had any images for some time. Rakeshji, could you please just reconnect your...
Yes, I think you're right. Yes,
please
I will
reconnect.
do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up. Yes, sorry for that. Okay, yes. Now is it okay?
It is 19, slide 19.
Yes, I'm there.
19 is this image of the moon. You see, just as the reflection of the moon appears to be moving in cloud water and to be unmoving in still water, in the same way the self, with the same as the Supreme Lord, appears to exist as embodied things with sense organs in different regions in creation. That is, there is a unity, a permanent stability in the reality which appears as a multiplicity. But there is a competence always of this unitary principle in the multiplicity of entities which are actually the product of the freedom of the self of God. Now, I would like to go to the magic of the moon. It is here. Now, I would like to make a spring to verse 12 and 13.
Verse 12.
You have the slides is the number 23.
Yes, verse 12 and 13. I'm there.
Yes, 23. And this is the image of the mirror. And here the author says us just as variety in the form of the city, village, etc., when seen in a mirror is not separate, yet it appears differentiated as a city, village, etc., and also as different from the mirror. Similarly, the universe, so not existing as different from the pure self-experience of the highest Bhairava, appears as the world differentiated and different from the Supreme Tattva. And also here, Abhinavagupta makes an image in order to explain us how it can be that there is a unity between the Lord and the plurality of entities. That is, the mirror, which reflects a plurality of entities, is actually, it appears to be different from the plurality of images, but it is not. There is not a separation between the Lord, as mirror in this case, and the plurality of images which are reflected in the mirror. This is the main point. That is, apparently, we can see the reality as a complex of mutually extraneous things, as mutually separated things, separated from each other and separated from the Lord, from the principle. But this is not the truth. That is, the dualism is a false impression of the entities, a false vision, interpretation of the reality we give in as a consequence of our ignorance of the state of things. True is there is a unity. There is a unity which is dictated by the Lord, is represented by the Lord, which is who is immanent in the things and who governs the things, which is with his energy. Now, I do not know whether I have time to, because I have not seen when I have begun to speak. Can I have 2-3 minutes? Or,
yeah,
or
2 minutes. 2 minutes are okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay, yes. Well, now, yes. And now, perhaps please which is this verse. It is slide 25, slide 25, 16.
Yeah.
In slide 25, we can find a sort of explanation of the way in which the Lord decides to coagulate himself, to contract himself into things. You see, Abhinavagupta says, enveloped by Maya Shakti, the Buddha, Shiva's self-aware, pure consciousness, becomes defiled and accepts the condition of Purusha, a fettleress being. Upon being fully bound by Kala, limitation with respect to time, Kala limited agency, Niyati, limitation with respect to causation, Raga, limited desire, and Avidya, limitation due to ignorance, Kanpukas. This, there is a kind of compression of the, now it is slide 26, of the Lord in the particularity of the entities, which does not mean that the Lord is always the Lord. But you see, the consciousness itself of the Lord is the factor which concretizes itself and limits itself in the particular entities. All particular entities are limited by time, agency, causation, desire, and ignorance. The nature of the concrete entities is the limitation of respectives. Already the limitation of time, for instance, is the limitation in something particular. In order to go out from the limitations, from the limits of the life dimension, the subject, the individual subject, the person, the individual, we have to recognize the bondage represented by the factors of time, agency, causation, desire, and ignorance. That is, first of all, the subject is called on to understand that the dualist is false. This is the first step towards the going back to the Lord. It's the acknowledgement, the recognition that actually there is no dualism, that the Lord is always here, is not beyond, the Lord is not beyond us, is here. It's only we that are not in the condition, we are not able, due to the limitation of our beginning of the life condition in which we are born, to see that the Lord is already us, that there is only one Haham, only one I, one transcendent and immanent I, and that we are already part of this I. But I think I can conclude here, because eventually there are also some things which I can tell in the course of the discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nikolai. I think, yeah, I think Ganguly, I think thanks for a lot for your insight. I think this was wonderful summary about the Lord Shiva, about the monoism, about the Advaita philosophy overall. We have Dr. Milan. Milan, if you can just unmute your phone. We have been waiting for a long time. Do we have Milan here?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we are able to hear you.
Is it audible?
Yes, it is.
So
please go ahead.
I think the organizer and Mr. Rakesh and Professor Mira for having given me this opportunity to present some brief points on Abhinavagupta's philosophy. But I would like to confess that though I studied Kashmir Shaivism in MA, so far actually I don't have any technical knowledge about Kashmiri Shaivism, especially such a vast, having a lot of scope and the depth and multi-dimensional character of his philosophy. Now I'm regretting, after teaching for so many years, that I have so far not done anything. Actually, when Professor Mira told me, asked me to present some short point of view, I was wondering what should I do. And then when I was just having a what do you call, cursory kind of, when I was going through some secondary sources, suddenly I realized that all the kind of questions, issues I've raised in my thesis, which is on Chaitanya's Bhakti Rasa, I recontextualize as divine love, that is Preeti or Prema Bhakti, that kind of thing. I had asked so many questions that I found in Abhinavagupta's philosophy. So this is something like I'm having a retrospective understanding of Abhinavagupta's philosophy or Kashmir Shaivism from my own the perspective of from my own thesis. But I would like to once again confess to everyone, to all the listeners, that what I'm going to say will be more or less just an overview, because I feel that I'm a learner. I'm just beginning to learn Kashmir Shaivism. Otherwise, I myself was actually a Vaishnav, still a Vaishnav. And I was a practitioner. I was a brahmachari also. I left home at a young age. And at the time of joining my job in 1991, I came back to Manipur. And, this has been one of the issues which has been, what you call, getting hold of my mind all these years, especially when I was beginning to work on the philosophy of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, that is Bhakti Rasa, where this element of Tantra, Tantric Maithuna, called that radical kind of tantric process, which some actually Western books they criticize. They criticize, Radha. They criticize Krishna from the moral perspective, ethical perspective. Then I was thinking at the time I was a little reluctant. I was taken aback, and as a young scholar in Madras, I was just wondering how am I going to proceed with this thing. I was an insider to the movement of what you call Gaudiya, religion. As a practitioner, I was actually one of the inmates of International Society of Krishna Consciousness. But at that time, we were not allowed to read any text, especially Rupa Goswami's or Jiva Goswami's text, which I struggled to get the Sanskrit text by going to Vrindavan in 1988. I read the Sanskrit text translated into Hindi, and through that I've learned so many things. Because certain issues which were raised about this tantric element, which I found in Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the form of the so-called bridal mysticism, that is erotic dimension, actually raised, contextualized in aesthetic kind of form by Rupa Goswami in the form of Bhakti Rasa. I think if I subject to correction, it was Rupa Goswami for the first time who interpreted Bhakti as a rasa. And I found that I was asking why Rupa Goswami was actually recontextualizing Bhakti as a rasa in the Alankara tradition. He used all the technicalities of Alankara Shastra, that is Indian aesthetics, and he was representing everything about this, Bengal Vaishnavism's conception of Bhakti, which is very radical in the sense that it is completely aestheticized and pure kind of, that kind of, in a subtle manner, sensuality is there. And that is what we talk about Parakya Rasa and Swakya Rasa kind of thing. And Parakya Rasa, as we understand, it has the element of transgression. Then I found out that the gross kind of radical kind of tantric kind of practice is forbidden. It is not there in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, except in the Sahaja Vaishnava kind of movement, Sahaja Vaishnavism in Bengal. It is there. They have been actually criticized, and they do in hush-hush kind of thing. But that is not there, because Chaitanya was, morally very pure person, and there was no point of casting any doubt on him, in that context. So why I am raising this thing, aesthetical, my title was actually Aesthetical Tantric Dimension of Kashmiri Vaishnavism of Abhinavagupta. or Abhinavagupta's philosophy. Understanding this thing actually is very important because there are a lot of misunderstandings, and this misunderstanding cannot be removed unless we understand the difference between aesthetic language, that is the kind of an ordinary language, the different models of language we have. Religious language is there, and in the context of religious language, when we use this aesthetic kind of approach, which was actually in a very elaborate, in a very deep fashion, carried out by Abhinavagupta, who actually, everybody knows, and he not repeat, he commented on Bharata's Natya Shastra and Anandavardhana's, Tantra Loka and all. That is actually already known. So the thing is, we have to ask why Abhinavagupta actually tried to contextualize this non-dual kind of philosophy which he was developing. Kashmiri Shaivism as a non-dual kind of thesis he was developing in that context, that androgyny kind of thing, Ardhanareswara, the Shiva and Shakti. I will rather put it as a kind of statico dynamic kind of absolute. The male principle is static, and he become dynamic through his Shakti and his creative power. Shakti is a creative power, all those things are connected with Pratibhigya and all those things. And that is also something to do with his Shiva's own self-recognition, to recognize his own self, absolute self. It may sound contradictory, or it may sound paradoxical, because why God has to know itself. This happens in the case of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, in the case of Krishna also. Because, Krishna, bhakti in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is the functional expression of the bliss potency, which is the highest and the core potency of Krishna. The other two powers of potencies of Krishna are Maya Shakti or Bahiranga Shakti, and the Jiva Shakti or Tatashta Shakti. Because these three Shaktis, the Shakti doctrine of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, after going through some of the text of Kashmiri Shaivism, I found that Rupa Goswami actually and Jiva Goswami modeled their Bhakti Rasa, the theory of Bhakti Rasa, and the ontological foundation of this aestheticized bhakti in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is completely based on the principle of Shakti. And Jiva Goswami's ontological, metaphysical, causal theory is known as Shakti Parinamavad. They don't believe in Maya, or Advaita Vedanta's Maya. Shakti Parinamavad. The entire world is a manifestation of Krishna's Shakti. And at that time, being trained as a Advaitin, I was trained as an Advaitin in Madras, and all those polemics. Then coming to this theological dimension of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, I was a little put off in the beginning. I didn't understand how am I going to go about all these things. It took days and days together for me to realize the truth, the hidden principle, and the beautiful structure inside. Later on, I realized that there is beauty, and I believe that it is subject to actually correction. That Gaudiya Vaishnavism's this Shakti Parinamavad, the doctrine of Shakti, is founded on, I think it was influenced by Abhinavagupta's formulation and all those things which started from Samananda and Utpal Deva and Abhinavagupta and Kshemendra. In that way, I'm having a different kind of understanding of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. The theory of bhakti recasted in that kind of principle of Shakti by Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami. Rupa Goswami was actually interpreting bhakti as a rasa by using all the paraphernalia of Alankar Shastra, that is Indian aesthetics, classical Indian aesthetics. And Jiva Goswami was only developing the philosophical foundation in the form of Achintya Bheda Bhed. So now, why, if we have to link up this Gaudiya Vaishnavism and Kashmiri Shaivism, through this principle of doctrine of Shaivism, both has this aesthetico-tantric kind of contextualization of their ideas, their philosophies, their practices. Because in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, aesthetic process, it was found in Srimad Bhagavatam also. And I found that thing in Kashmiri Shaivism also. Aesthetic and these tantric elements, more or less, they are used as some kind of contemplative kind of worship, contemplative kind of experience in a spiritual sense, so that I will realize that I am Shiva, Shiva Aham. And that is what Prativigya is all about. And I was completely mesmerized when I was going through in the morning today, because this year, I don't know whether I should say now, it is a little private kind of thing. I want to share a personal experience. I was a practitioner as a Vaishnava, but I found that my, predisposition is more Shakti kind of thing. Because in this year, Navaratri, one day before Navaratri, the next day will be Navaratri in the night, that Om Namo Shivaya, this mantra came in my dream. And it is something private I said, that I realized that there is something in this. It comes in the form of energy, in the form of this mantra. Mantra is an energy. So now, this why this Kashmiri Shaivism and Bengal Vaishnavism use this Shakti principle, because the whole world, Professor Rastoji beautifully expressed that this Prativigya is a comprehensive system. When I realize as a finite jiva, when I realize that I am Shiva, my identity with Shiva, and through that process of energy, tantric process or aesthetic and tantric synthesized together in a refined manner by Abhinava Gupta, not the radical one, the gross one, which was there earlier in Kashmir Valley before Samananda. So those were refined, gradually uplifted to the kind of Brahmanical kind of socio-ethical order. It became refined. The problem is, if we want to understand this element of transgression, in the case of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, it is more on the aesthetic kind of contemplative kind of level, where Radha and gopis are considered to be some other man's wife. That is what is Parakya. Parakya means woman belonging to other men. And Shakya means woman who is duly married, legal wife of somebody. Now, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, this Parakya rasa is higher than the Shakya rasa. That is loving relation, conjugal love between husband and wife. That prem, when it is compared with the Parakya rasa, the rasa of Parakya, that kind of obstructive element is there in that, deliberately created, so that in the mood of viraha between a parama, that is Upapati, and his beloved, that is Radha and gopis, that viraha, the mood of longing, the passion is increased. So through that passion, through that kind of refined, aesthetically sensuous kind of portrayed kind of passion, the sadhaka, the bhakta, contemplates on the supreme rasahut of Krishna. Because Krishna is the rasamaya, means he is in the form of rasa. Because why? Because the highest Shakti, highest truth of the being of the absolute Krishna is a theistic absolute, is Hladini Shakti. I don't know how it is portrayed in the case of Kashmiri Shaivism, but it is there actually influenced by Shiva, and Shiva is a Shaktiman and he is Shakti. So now, if we want to understand this, what you call transgression.
If we can conclude in 1 minute, we have.
Yeah, before I wind up, before I wind up, I just want to say that this thing, the ethical dimension of transgression cannot be understood unless we understand the holistic, the integral nature of Indian civilization, Indian worldview. Because this transgression, the ethical issue, the moral issue of this tantric sadhana is based on this binary kind of thinking, which is actually there in the West. We have in India only in Sankhya. In that binary kind of thinking, this transgression occurs. This moral issue comes up. Because this also has a kind of issue in the case of, in relation to gender kind of issues also. But that we can understand, only we actually look at this in terms of the history of this transgression in India. Because in the ancient times, I have read a book published in Mumbai before Second World War. In that, it is mentioned that ancient Indian society was more permissive. We became more actually ethically repressive during the medieval time. And in modern times, we are having that kind of discourse between the progressive scholars and traditional scholars. In that context, only we talk about transgression. So this framework has to be kept in mind before we finally settle whether tantric practice, whether it is gross one, the radical one, or the refined one, which is there in Abhinavagupta's philosophy, is ethical or immoral, or it has to be understood in some kind of supra, kind of rational, trans kind of empirical kind of order, or we should have a transfiguration of this element of transgression in that kind of realization, which is Prativigya is all about. So I don't know, I confessed that I'm completely novice, still I'm learning, and this occasion has given me a chance to study Kashmir Shaivism. I promise to everyone here that definitely my next project will be on Kashmir Shaivism of Abhinavagupta, because aesthetics is one area where I have been working on. I have published some papers on Manipuri Vaishnavism also, which is actually developed out of Bengal Vaishnavism. So in that way, there are many things we have to discover, explore from Abhinavagupta. So with that, I will conclude my lecture.
Thank you, Milan. There are few questions also. I don't know, but we have limitations of the time. But I'll surely send you the questions in email. I think there are few listeners who are interested in some answers. So let us see. So I just want to give the mic to. We have Tina with us. I think she has been waiting. If I know we have very less time now. If Tina, you're available, if you can just speak for maybe 5 minutes, not more than that. Hope that is fine.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we are able to hear you. Thank you.
I don't come from the Indian tradition, but consciousness has fascinated me all my life. I started studying it in psychology in South Africa. But because there's a little time, I'm not going to go into too much about this. But I am fascinated in Indian philosophy, and I joined the group more as to learn. But I'd also like to share some of my explorations as a scientist. I became fascinated with embryology, and there's a school, or there's thoughts of Rudolf Steiner, who was also a great mystic, of how you can see the embryo through certain eyes. And I was shown the lens by Jaap van der Wal. And actually in our first 48 days of our existence, we go through the phases of the mineral phase, the plant phase, and then we go through the animal phase, from a worm to a fish to a reptile to bird to mammal, and finally man. This has to open many questions and many doors of also who are we. And I personally feel embryology can start verifying some of the fundamental questions raised by philosophers and lead us to a new understanding of the manifest of the absolute through matter. So with that, I'm going to leave the topic, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to say something, and also to be here to listen to all the eminent people who spoke today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. I think it was wonderful for a very short but beautiful words from you. Meeraji, if you can unmute your mic, we'd like to hear the summary from you as a concluding summary. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Namaste, Rastogi ji, Kianluigi, George, Tina, and Nikolai. Nice to see you all here. I need not summarize, though you have given a detailed thing, and it's nice that all of you participated. Rastogi ji has talked about the fundamental Kashmir Shaivism and the concepts of, concepts that he has, within the limited time, tried to explain a lot of things. We are sorry that we couldn't give much more time to each one of it, but I think we will look forward to a better meeting later on. And he has talked about Tantraloka, which gives a various model and talks about Kashmir Shaivism as a complete system. He also tried to point out the contemporary relevance of it. Nikolai has tried to put Nietzsche's, the philosopher Nietzsche's, will to truth, as Nietzsche explained it, that I must, which must always overcome itself. I am that which I must overcome. This is a very profound statement, and it has a lot of relevance to the ideology that Nikolai had tried to prove. I cannot go to much more details because I think I'm bound by the time. So George has tried to bring out the essential of Trika philosophy, the will, knowledge, and action, which emerges as a function of time, and how Swami Lakshmanji have given the mantra of Aghora, which is a manifestation which tries to do away with the evil and bring a good energy, that he's trying to say that. And how Shiva Shakti had tried to, he tries to explain, have become everything, and therefore the God consciousness, how it is around us. Meera has tried to bring the nuances, how the spiritual experience is an essential part of the aesthetic experience, and try to compare with Immanuel Kant's point of view, which is very near to Abhinava's. Gyan Luigi has tried to say how Shiva Shakti represents the infinite creation, and his focus on grace is very important, which is contributing factor to liberation, and Lord's manifestation in plurality, which is equally significant. how Lord manifests himself in the reality. Milan has a very profound concept there, and this is how the Neo-Vedanta and the Chaitanya, as interpreted by Rupa Goswami, is the thesis of Bhakti Rasa, where the tantric element has a transfigurative action via its constitutive Naika Bhava, which is of course gender orientation, which is very important. And he says how Bhakti Rasa is the foundation of the aesthetic experience. So therefore, I just try to summarize. And then I'm very happy that Tina, you have participated. You have honestly said that you do not know about it. It doesn't matter at all, but your understanding of consciousness studies is vast. And Abhinava talks about consciousness in such a way that you would find it certainly very interesting. So I'm extremely happy to and very grateful to all of you for participating, and also those whom we are not seeing, but those who are at the background. Certainly, Rakeshji would now, I think, give a formal thanks. Thank you all. Thank you very much for coming.
Sure. Thanks, Miraji. First of all, I would like to apologize for, I think initially there were few hiccups in terms of the connections, in terms of getting people on board. And yes, we have over time little bit, 26, 27 minutes. We have exceeded the times. I think then another apologies is to all those listeners. I think there are a lot of questions which have come, but I do not think we will be able to take it. I think sincere thanks to all the speakers here. I know this is a challenge and it's not sometimes justice when we tell the scholars to talk about Kashmir Shaivism in just 15 minutes, but from Ishwar Ashram Trust, we promise we'll have a very dedicated, subject-oriented discussion soon. This was the first beginning when we and Miraji spoke about that. We wanted to just have a beginning first, connect people with each other, get into the interests, what we are, and definitely going forward. I think this also today we understood in terms of the IT infrastructure wise and in terms of the presentation, other things. This was a beginning for us to learn things from each other and get into the interest point of it. I also promise Rastogiji also on this point that definitely we will have much better dedicated subject oriented discussions and from Ishwar Ashram. And I think because of the COVID, I know we are not able to have the sessions where we can have it face to face, but this is also a very good platform where we have connected the people from Australia. We were having people from United States. We were having people from Europe, and this is so immense. Like when everybody talks about consciousness, everybody talks about Abhinav Gupta's work. I think this is so proud for all of us that we are able to bring all of them together in a simple same platform, common platform. And to all the listeners, to all the scholars, my humble thanks to all of you and being with us. It is more than 2 hours now. I think it's 2.5 hours. I know most of the webinars go just 1 hour, and you have patiently listened to all of us. Thanks to everybody, and Jai Gurudev. Yeah, thank you. I will surely try to send the replies, and there were few requests also if the slides can be shared, so which I will personally talk to all the scholars, and we will surely try to do that. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Have a good day.